Guys, college football is back. If you have a PS5 or a next-gen console of some kind, I think all of us are PlayStation guys. Brian and I actually got to get on last night and play I think it was 3 games against each other. We won't ask Brian how it went, but just in the midst of your hours that you've put into the game over the last couple of days, how have you liked the game, enjoyed it? Any differences that you've noticed from last year? I know this is sports adjacent, but esports counts, right?
Absolutely.
Sure.
Uh, I did like the high school, the moments. I didn't like, playing whole games back when they had it before, but I do like that they brought it back. I think it was a good addition. It's a lot of fun. I haven't done the high school builder, importing your high school kind of thing, but just playing, those high school kind of moments was a lot of fun. Brought me back, nostalgia kind of thing. Um, the game overall is pretty fun. I've done a lot of the road to glory aspect of it. That's what I enjoy. That's what I enjoyed back when it was around before. I still enjoy it. I think it's a lot of fun, building that player up. I never start as an elite. I always start at like a 2 or 3 star and try to build my guy up from the bottom up like you do in high school. So I did enjoy that.
Yeah, I'm a big Dynasty fan. On the flip side of that, almost no Road to Glory. I'm not against Road to Glory. It just does not interest me much at all being a single player. And by the same token, I also don't build a my player in NBA 2K, which a lot of people complain that you need microtransactions and all that stuff. I'm like, what are you talking about? They're like, well, do you get tired of your my player having a brown t-shirt? And I was like, I don't even play that mode. It's like I'm a team player. And that actually goes to real life too. Like I don't play one-on-one basketball. I need to be able to pass it to somebody. That's actually one of my better skills is passing the ball. So I guess more of a team sports kind of guy. So Dynasty, I've actually played more hours than I'd like to admit, but I will anyway. It's about 13 hours. Um, Shout out to my friend Derek, who's actually got me beat on that. I think he had early access though, but whatever, whatever. I've played through an entire season of Dynasty as an offensive coordinator, so you only play offense. Goes a bit quicker. I like I pretty much like it all. The gameplay is real smooth. It feels like you're playing real football in a sense. Like if you get behind and you want to just start throwing verts, the defense will adjust and they'll just back off. And like there's no way you're throwing verts on them all game. So there's a lot of real AI stuff going on there. They can really adapt. There's a few bugs here and there. For example, when you go do protected games in your custom conferences and stuff, that all gets messed up. It'll let you edit like half the teams and not the other half. Uh, like Tennessee and Vanderbilt could be rivals with each other, but they couldn't be rivals. Like Tennessee couldn't be rivals with Alabama. So it just, they have some things. Those things will be patched pretty quickly. I'm not too worried about it. There's some recruiting things that don't make sense. Like I got locked out of something, just left him on the board, and he was on my roster the very next year. So overall, they're doing really good. I'm on the a few Facebook groups and stuff, so I actually see what's gone into making this. And the truth is when you're complaining on some of these boards and stuff, they're actually watching, they're listening, they're reading it. So when people are like, "Dude, you're complaining to no one," that's not necessarily true because they have dedicated people on their staff going out there and reading what you want and what you don't like and what needs to be fixed. And a lot of times they agree with you. So it's nice to be in an era where your complaints are being heard. People that are giving you this entertainment are seeing it and fixing it for you. And I think it's a cool time to be a fan of college football and the game itself.
Yeah, I know. I struggled the first game that I played, just as far as the difficulty, kind of what you're talking about, how quickly the AI adjusts to what you're trying to do. Just full transparency, I am not much of a gamer. I don't pretend to be. I'm certainly not. successful at the game or playing in a competitive nature by any stretch of the imagination. But I was a little frustrated the first time I turned the game on because I'm Ohio State and I'm playing Georgia State, who I hate, and I want to take that out on them. And I'm being completely neutralized by their defense. Their quarterback looks like second coming of Tom Brady. He's like 9 for 9, over 100 yards and a touchdown in the first quarter. And I rage quit the first night. I was like, I'll play again tomorrow. I'm not doing it. But I put some time in the lab. The practice mode is very useful for that, figuring out mechanics and getting the flow of what works and what doesn't, finding out what you like and what you don't. And I was able to turn that into success against my brother when we played those games last night. He kind of skirted around it a little bit, but a couple of the games were not particularly close. I did go 3-0 against him, which might say more about him than it does me at this point, because I still don't think I'm a very good player, but we at least had fun. It was very reminiscent of my childhood and growing up being 10 to 13 years old, and I would go over to my brother's house and I would get the brakes beat off of me. And so now to be able to come back and have a game where he's ready to quit by the end of the first quarter, I'm like, yeah, like who's the big brother now kind of thing. It was a lot of fun. We enjoyed it. Obviously, the home field advantage played a lot into my favor, and I was ready to take advantage of it. So it was a lot of fun. But I've only played with 3 teams so far. I had Ohio State the first game, LSU the second game, and then South Carolina the third game. Cool to see the individuality between the teams. It doesn't feel like you're playing with the same team in a different uniform like they sometimes did, where the plays and playbooks look the same and you're just executing essentially. There is a lot of unique identity going from team to team just from what I've seen between those 3 teams. And I know there's a lot more out there that I haven't really explored yet. So pretty interesting, but that was the big thing in the world of sports for us this week is the release of College Football 26. So I knew that was going to be a good conversation to start the podcast off with. In the world of real football, though, I kind of wanted to get your takes on this. So Brian and I being primarily Falcons fans, and then Chris and I both being Baker Mayfield owners in our fantasy leagues. Tristan Wirfs has a knee injury. He had tried to play through it all last year and had some struggle, but was still an All-Pro. He decided that throughout the offseason it was better to go ahead and have like a procedure done to try to correct it rather than continuing to play through it. And so it was one of those things where now it is believed that he's not going to be ready for the start of the year. He's going to miss at least the first week. They think possibly the first 4 weeks if he goes on the PUP list. And so my question to you guys is, should the Buccaneers be worried about not having their best offensive lineman, their blindside protector to Baker Mayfield, and somebody that makes this offense run so smoothly?
Of course you should.
Yeah, 100%.
For all the reasons you just said. He's got some legs on him and everything, but I think we've seen in the last probably the last 50 years of the NFL, even if you've got legs, you don't want to just rely on that because at some point those legs are going to wear out. You're going to snap a leg, rupture an Achilles, especially if you're pushing 40 or over 40, Aaron. So yeah, to lose somebody like that is just devastating. Can it be overcome? Probably, as long as the rest of the line can hold up and you can plug someone in that's halfway competent, then it should be okay.
Yeah, I'm like you. I think it's gonna hurt for sure. They're gonna notice that him not being there. But at the end of the day, it's the NFL. It's the next one up. So, is the next one up as good? No. But is he, 80% as good? Yes. So, I think it will hurt just marginally. I don't think you should take this team lightly. I don't think you should take Baker Mayfield lightly. He can destroy you on a bunch of levels. But with that being said, if I'm Atlanta and I'm playing them week 1, oh yeah, I'm attacking that side all day long. I'm going to send that edge rusher, and Pierce is going to feast on that, him not being there. So,
yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I don't know if this changes your answer, but say he does go on that physically unable to perform list and he misses the first 4 weeks. I'm not a huge schedule guy, but I thought this was worth bringing up. The first 4 weeks for Tampa Bay at Atlanta, week 1.
Yep.
Week 2 at Houston. Week 3, they play the Jets. And week 4, the Philadelphia Eagles.
It's gonna be tough sledding there for that first 4 weeks. All I can say.
So when you start talking about Atlanta's chances to win the division, because I think we agree this is not a Carolina or New Orleans division to win. This is going to be a 2-horse race. I think this is huge. Not only having that week 1 head-to-head, where a lot of times as Atlanta fans, we have been used to having all of our division games being backloaded to the second half of the schedule to start week 1 against Tampa Bay, to get them without that all-pro left tackle, where I'm not so sure they have a guy that can step in and be 80% of Tristan Wirfs, because 80% of Tristan Wirfs is starting for most teams. There's talk that they're going to have to go out and find a currently unsigned player to try to fill that void, because they don't think that they have somebody capable on their roster currently. I mean, he is the true anchor of that line, and I don't think you can understate the loss if he misses 4 games, or say he doesn't come back the way that they think that they will, and he has to set out even longer. We talked about Christian McCaffrey. They said if it was a playoff game, he'd be out there week 1. He doesn't come back until after their bye week last year. What if it's a scenario where he misses half the season? Tampa Bay has a week 9 bye this year. So say he doesn't play until week 10. What does Tampa Bay's season look like up to that point through the first 9 weeks of the year if they don't have their all-pro left tackle? I did think that was worth bringing up.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think it's going to be a big loss. I don't want to understate it by saying that your next one up is 80% as good as him, but you know, I also don't want to discredit either the backups and and the production that Mayfield will get. I mean, you got to remember he is still an elite quarterback in the NFL. He's, I think it's gonna hurt them. They're gonna suffer, but you know, I don't know that I still think it's gonna be Atlanta and Tampa Bay vying for that 1 and 2 spot. Does this help Atlanta? Absolutely. And that's good for us Falcons fans, not so good for Tampa Bay fans. But I also don't want to count Mayfield out and say, okay, their season is trashed. Because I do think they're the number 2, even with him being out. I think they're the number 2 team in the league, or in that conference. So, yes, it's going to hurt be a number 1 or number 2, but I don't know overall. I don't know that it hurts you in the grand scheme of things. I still think you have enough wins to get you into the playoffs. And hopefully at that point he is back 100%, and then you get a good Tampa Bay. I want that for their fans. I want that the competitive in me wants that to be true. And again, I want the best for all players, even including Aaron Rodgers. You know, I I'm not as big a hater as everybody says I am, but yes, if it sucks, I'm gonna hate on you. And I'm I still think he should have retired. I still think he should go to the golf course. I've made that known in so many videos, but he's playing. More power to you. I don't want him hurt. I hope he has a good year, and I hope that for the Steelers fans.
Yeah, I think with Atlanta, as many additions that they've made to that front 7 and trying to correct the pass rush, I think you've got to be licking your chops at this point, seeing that Tristan Wirfs injury news, knowing that he's not going to be there week 1, and you can dial up pressures. If you're Raheem Morris, that game plan has already started even before training camp preparations have begun. You're trying to figure out how you can get James Pierce Jr. and Jalen Walker to take advantage of that left side and really getting after Baker Mayfield and stealing a quick 1-0 division lead against Tampa Bay. Essentially, you need to go in there and punch them in the mouth. And speaking of punching people in the mouth, the greatest segue in podcast history, Chris, what were you watching last night?
Last night I was just hanging out, and Netflix said, the Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano Part 3 fight was on, the final fight between them. So I checked that out. Obviously, I guess there probably is a huge audience out there for women's boxing, but not on the level of some other things. But I think myself, like a lot of others, watched the Tyson fight, Tyson and Paul, and got to see those two go right before Tyson and Paul, and was like, dude, this was the fight of the night. And so you see that come up across your screen again. Say one last time, we're going to do it, especially when that one ended in a little controversy. I had to check it out. Not a lot of, no one got brutally busted open. You didn't see anyone's eyebrow, bone nearly exposed, anything. A little disappointing, but you did see a very close fight. If I'm not mistaken, I don't have the exact numbers here. I believe one judge had a draw, and then the other two judges put it for Katie Taylor, so she's won all three fights. Um, Fight number two, there was some headbutting. There was a lot of the fans saw it as Serrano winning the fight. The judges said no. So a lot of us were calling bullshit here and waiting for this third fight. But I think we saw a very fair fight, or I saw a very fair fight. And some of you out there maybe too. And Taylor did come away with the win. I don't have any problem with it. At this point, three fights in, you just got to bow your head and say you were the better fighter. They asked her if that was all for her at the age of 39, I believe, and she didn't say she didn't say she planned to continue fighting. Like, they asked Mike Tyson the same thing. They said, "Is this it?" And he goes, "Probably not." And you were like, "Okay, really?" And but she gave a, a more realistic answer. She's like, "It could be." And she's, they listed out her accolades at the beginning, like so many gold medals in the world of boxing in Europe and Ireland and all over the place. And obviously, she's been the undisputed champion for a while at her weight class. And it was a decent ending, and I think it does a lot for that sport to have these two championing the a trilogy like this.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you can get that big of a stage, I think Netflix has done a lot for that sport, making it accessible, making it to where it's not an ESPN2 Saturday night, super late, and nobody's really paying attention to it. They've all got other plans, but the ability to promote and advertise the way that Netflix can and does, I think helps them in a big way.
Yeah. And me being a little older, so I grew up in the era where when Mike Tyson was so dominating. You had Holyfield, you had Muhammad Ali at the tail end of his career. I grew up when that boxing was all the hype. It was, super big. And, with that being said, I've also seen the decline of boxing, over the years and not being, like Brad said, it's coming on at, midnight and nobody's really staying up to watch it. Just an opinion. What do y'all think? Does boxing make a comeback, or has MMA just kind of, not overtaken it, and it has in a lot of ways, but kind of diminished, I guess, the ability to come back and be that premier sport?
Well, I know Brad will have a longer answer here, so I'll just throw mine in real quick. Yeah, I think that MMA has diminished it, and I think it's a good reason. It's more entertaining, it's more diverse, it's more fun. So
Well, I think the biggest thing is that it's competition. It does not help build each other up. A lot of times you are watching one or the other, you have a preference. We'll talk about wrestling here in a little bit. And so there are a lot of people that watch WWE and AEW. They might also watch TNA. They might also watch New Japan because they like wrestling. You don't have a lot of people that say, I watch MMA and I watch boxing because I like combat sports. It's somebody says, I like boxing because I don't want to watch two dudes hugging each other and rolling around on the ground because they don't care about the jujitsu part of things. You've got other people that say boxing does not represent a real fight because they have such strict rules that they have to operate in, where it's like, if I've got a dude that's grabbing a hold of me so I can't punch him, I'm going to try to knee him. It's like, well, you can't do that in boxing. It's hands only, and there's not as much to that. So, I mean, I think somebody called boxing the subtle science for a long time, because it was just very formulaic. You're both trying to do the same thing, so who's going to do it better? Whereas in the world of MMA, you have a lot more options. There's more weapons and things that you can use to either specialize in, to weaponize, and to find certain edges in different aspects of the game. In boxing, you pretty much just have mobility, power, technique. I mean, all those things that made Floyd Mayweather great would make him lose in 30 seconds in an MMA fight because he only does that one thing.
Yeah.
And so I think they kind of cannibalize on each other. You either like the purity of boxing and what it represents, or you like the more well-rounded aspect of what mixed martial arts provides you, where boxing is a part of MMA, but it is a small part of it. It is not the whole. And you can not be a great boxer and you can still succeed in the world of the UFC or some of those other MMA promotions. So I don't think, to answer your question, that boxing makes a comeback, because when boxing was great, it was kind of the only show in town. If you wanted to watch somebody get hit in the face, you were watching boxing. Now, if you want to watch somebody get hit in the face, you can watch boxing, you can watch the UFC, you can watch bare knuckle, you can even watch power slap if that's your cup of tea. And you have other options to fill that void that you didn't have 25 years ago. And that's why I don't think that you see boxing make the prominent comeback that maybe some people would like. I also don't know that you have the star power anymore. I don't know that you have the ability to create stars, even though money is certainly there. You see people that complain about how much money they make in MMA. They build up a name and then they go to boxing and they make more money in one boxing fight than they made in their entire career combined in the UFC. Like a Francis Ngannou comes to mind. But I just don't know that you'll see a true star become a household name born out of boxing like you did with a Muhammad Ali and Iron Mike Tyson, Sugar Ray Leonard, all of those other big names that you've known for so long.
Well, I do want to give credit to Jake Paul. I mean, he's really trying. Is he the greatest boxer that ever lived? No. Is he still missing, some of that technical that you saw from Muhammad Ali and Holyfield and some of those who grew up, boxing? He doesn't have that. Nor do I think he'll ever get to that level in boxing. But to be able to bring it back to, the Netflix where Chris is seeing it pop up, I credit Jake Paul for a lot of that. I don't think it would be there without him. So he does lend that star power to that sport to kind of keep it alive. I don't necessarily want to see it go away, and I don't know that it ever will. But there for a while, you heard nothing about boxing. Like, it wasn't coming on Netflix. It barely come on ESPN and a highlight, and it didn't have that big name. But I credit Jake Paul, love him or hate him and his brother. I know his brother's in WWE. They do have star power, and they can lend their name to basically bring a sport back to the forefront. And I think that's what Jake Paul's done. Like I said, you can love him or hate him. I don't necessarily agree with a lot of what they do. It's a lot of antics, like the Jake Paul and Tyson fight. I thought that was a joke when it wasn't glitching out. But at the same time, I understand why he did it. It was a payday for his friend, Mike Tyson. It drew a big crowd, but it also brought a bunch of people into the boxing world that wasn't necessarily there.
And
yeah,
to your
for sure.
credit,
I mean, I think if you look at a post Floyd Mayweather, post Tyson Fury world of boxing, if I were to ask any random person, hey, name a professional boxer, how many of them are going to have to say Jake Paul because they don't know anybody else? Yeah. And even the event that Chris watched last night that we just spoke about, that was born from a Jake Paul card. If there weren't so many eyes on that Jake Paul, Mike Tyson fight to see the first, what was the second fight between Taylor and Serrano, would they have then gotten their own event where they were the headline, fight on a Netflix card that somebody like Chris would tune into without having watched the Jake Paul fight the first time?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm not sure you guys realize this because I'm not sure either of you watched it, but Jake Paul was standing right behind Amanda Serrano and patting her on the back. So he was there front and center.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to say he legitimized the sport because that doesn't need to be done. I think he's legitimized himself within the sport And he went from being a YouTuber, a content creator, somebody that was doing celebrity boxing matches where there was a lot of talk of him paying off people to throw fights and stuff like that just to build up a fake cred. He is now a ranked boxer in the world of boxing. You look at the WBC, he is now able to challenge for titles and stuff like that. And I think it's a matter of time before he wins a belt and really legitimizes himself further. And I think that's going to be a good day for the world of boxing. And I'm not saying that they're on life support by any stretch, because there is still a lot of money in the sport going around, but it at least makes it to where there are eyes on the sport that there wouldn't be otherwise. And I think last night was proof of that.
Yep. I think he is the new face, for better or for worse. He is the new face of boxing. And, you know, I like to see it happen. I like to see it being born. I realized him and his brother started on Vine. He ended up going to Disney Channel for a while, then over to YouTube, and now into the boxing world. So he's had a crazy career path, but I'm happy to see it. I'm happy that he's lending his name to boxing and kind of keeping it, you know, not in the forefront per se, but at least around for the next generation of, you know, who knows when the next Mike Tyson's coming, who knows when the next Holyfield's coming, you know, the George Foreman's, you know, who knows when they're going to be born and they're really going to take and be the face of that sport.
Yeah. Chris, what else did you have?
Well, we got a lot of wrestling going on, and I'll lead in first with the one coming up here in 3 hours as of this recording. As of you guys watching it, it's probably already happened. That's AEW All In. They, if you're not familiar, that has basically become their equivalent to WrestleMania. They sold out Wembley Stadium the last 2 years. This year, we're going to be in Texas. And I think that they have a great chance to take a product that I won't say is stale like I did a few months ago, but it is not as fresh as it should be. So they have a chance to do the right thing here. I know AEW is really good at bringing back big names at these type of events or debuting someone. I don't see a debut coming, but some returning people just to shake things up would be very welcome. And I think while you'd like to build up some stars, I really think you need to put out some things that get people's attention. You need to put Kenny Omega out there in a big match and not against a guy that I grant you is probably really good in Japanese culture, but you need to give us things that look big, things that people outside of AEW hardcore fans may look at. Like, if you said, "Hey, it's Kenny Omega versus Adam Copeland, the former Edge," you'd be like, "Whoa, I've never seen that in my life, and I probably won't get the chance because he's getting, Edge is getting really old." Um, so there's just basically a lot of there's a chance there's a chance here to have a clean slate from a somewhat stale product. I think you need to get the title off Moxley, get it on Hangman. Wouldn't have been my first choice, but they've done a pretty good job building up that feud. And they're going to have a Texas death match, or I guess already have by the time anyone sees this. And I know that in these kind of violent, bloody matches, they can take it too far. I'm personally a big fan of that, taking it way too far. I've seen staple guns. I think they stuck a syringe through someone's mouth. They've got burns. They've got broken glass, blood everywhere. Uh, Even if you're not a fan of that sort of thing, you'll perk up, you'll pay attention, you will have heard of it. So they have a lot of chance to do some great things. And then Brad, I know that you have watched a little more WWE than me lately. Also, some events going on, I believe today and tomorrow.
Yeah, so there's some counter programming going on. Saturday night's main event is tonight, whereas I don't think that you'll have a marquee moment that spawns from that event, similarly to a bloody Hangman finally taking the AEW World Championship, freeing it from that briefcase that it's been relegated to over the last several months. I don't think that you'll get a big moment. Your headline is World Champion Gunther going against Goldberg, who is basically the Aaron Rodgers of pro wrestling. He should be on a golf course somewhere, Brian might say. And this is his retirement match. I don't see him winning it. I guess there is a small outside chance that some shenanigans could happen. Gunther could drop the belt to Goldberg. Goldberg says, I'm retiring. Here's your belt. You get a tournament. Culminates at SummerSlam, whatever happens with that. I mean, I could see something crazy like that happening. I think we all think that Gunther is going to be the one to put out Goldberg and turn the, your next into the your last kind of scenario. I think the big match that most people would be interested in from that is actually going to be Seth Rollins versus LA Knight. Yeah, I think that could be a good one, and might even be the best match that you see today. Not to take anything away from Tony Storm and Mercedes Moné or Omega Okada. I mean, that could just be a really good match on the WWE front. And then I think the one event that we think does not necessarily belong in this weekend, just based off of everything else going on, is Evolution, the all-women's event that's going to take place tomorrow, headlined by Io Sky, probably losing her championship to Rhea Ripley. You've got Tiffany Stratton defending her championship against Trish Stratus, and then the triple threat, which could be the great match of Sunday between Becky Lynch, Bayley, and Lyra Valkyria. A lot of wrestling. If you're a wrestling fan, you're going to be pretty happy this weekend because there's 47 hours worth of wrestling that you could watch this week, it seems. Yeah. But I know you're going to be most looking forward to All In. I think whatever your cup of tea is, your flavor of wrestling, there's going to be something for you this weekend for sure.
Yeah, and I'm not a huge fan of Evolution, and I think that let me just look through this card. I think that almost everyone on this match card are great, talented women's wrestlers. I also think that a lot of WNBA games are also great, talented women's basketball players. I think you see where I'm going with this. It's still not the draw, and they've done this before. I think it was about 6 years ago now, and it flopped. I think there were good moments you could find in it, but it did not have the buy rates. It did not have the in-person attendance, and it just all women's. I know it sounds wrong, and it maybe shouldn't be that way if you're operating in a world of complete fairness, but we're not. Men are just a bigger athletic entertainment draw in that sort of thing. You're not on even playing fields. Sorry, I'm looking at my bookshelf right here. I got a few books on rock and roll and stuff. If you give me a book on heart and a book on I don't know, Motorhead, don't come at me, guys. I know some of you are gonna hate that, but I would think that those are on equal playing fields. Those are two hard rocking bands. One just happens to have female members. One happens to have male members. I think when it comes to sports, you're never going to be on even grounds at all. Um, it, I see what they're doing. I don't think it's going to be successful this time. It wasn't successful last time. I don't see it being successful in the future.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of the question that can stem from this is, we talked about, does boxing ever return to its prominence? Do women's sports ever claim what some people perceive as their rightful share, or do they already have their rightful share because the numbers prove what they do? Will WNBA ever be self-sustaining? Will their popularity ever turn into financial gains to where they can operate on their own without being bailed out by the NBA every year? Because basically that league is a charity done to pacify the fans of the women's sports. Will with all women's pay-per-view ever do the same numbers that a pay-per-view also containing men's wrestling do? So far, we've seen the answer to be no. If the UFC decided to say, hey, we're going to have an all women's fight card. We're not going to have any men's, not just a women's main event, because that's happened plenty of times.
Sure.
Women have headlined WrestleMania before. That was a big deal. Mm-hmm. But will an all women's UFC card do as well as a card of the UFC that features like a Sugar Sean O'Malley or some of these other big names in the sport? The answer is probably no. But Brian, what do you think?
I don't know. I guess because I'm not a wrestling fan, I don't have an opinion one way or the other. I would like to see women do good as far as the draw, and I don't know that it'll ever happen. I know it does in some sports. Tennis is one of them. women's tennis is, I feel like, equally as big as men's tennis. Um, but that's one sport across many. You know,
Right.
the LGPA is not as popular as the PGA. You know, it's not gonna be. You know, and then again, I don't even know that it's as popular as Live. You know, I think Live beats it out, and Live is an all male. I don't think they have any females, because of the Saudi and that whole thing. I'm not going to get into that, but um, I don't know. I'd like to see the women, you know, I think it should be 50-50. I think they work just as hard as the males. I think they, you know, there should be an equal draw. Uh, Especially when you get into wrestling, the women are beautiful. You know, which would I rather see, a bloody dude or a beautiful woman? You know, I know what my pick is, but you know, that doesn't seem to be the consensus. They want to see the bloody male for whatever reason. Um,
I think you're calling shots at Chris with that one.
Well,
I'm
I
not
think
really calling. I'm not calling shots. I'm just being honest. I mean, I I don't. I guess I don't know because I don't watch. Maybe there is more, you know, acrobatics in men's because they are stronger. Maybe it's more competitive than women's because they are stronger. You know, I just think they're two different things. But I don't understand where the lack of appeal from women's sport is. You know, basketball, I understand. You know, they're not slam dunking. They're not, you know, it's not as fast back and forth across the court. So I understand that. Um, where tennis is kind of equal, you know, as far as there's only marginal differences between a woman tennis player and a man tennis player. So maybe that's why it's kind of a little bit more balanced in the tennis world. And maybe it's not. Maybe I'm wrong. You know, hopefully somebody will comment and say, Brian, you're an idiot. You know nothing about tennis. Because that would be the case. I don't. But what I see on TV, you know, it seems to be more equal than some of the other sports that I see.
Yeah,
just
that's a fair point. I think if you had the best women's tennis player going against the best men's tennis player, it would be a closer contest. And I'm not, you know,
and it's
truly
happened.
educated enough on the sport to say how that would really go today.
It has happened.
Yeah, but it's one of those things where if you put any other sport, does the woman stand a chance? You know, would Ronda Rousey ever stand a chance against John Jones? No. Would Angel Reese ever stand a chance against LeBron James? Hell no. Not even against her twin, Andre Drummond. It's not going to work out in any other sport. There's not a pro women's baseball league for a reason. The talent's just not there. It's not a comparable thing. And this isn't a women bashing podcast by any stretch. It's just kind of the nature of the beast. And I think it is that perceived and realistic difference between the skill levels that say, if I'm watching a women's event, I'm watching a lesser event. And maybe that shouldn't always be the case, especially in the world of pro wrestling where your suspension of belief has to be stated as well. I don't know. It's just something that with Evolution being an event where they have had to tape off sections because of poor ticket sales and literally upgrade people to better seats for free just so they can have a camera shot that looks like a full crowd behind the ring. It kind of just speaks to itself. And this is Atlanta. This is a city that has done just decades worth of events in the world of wrestling. Atlanta is huge for wrestling. WCW was born out of this. NWA was big in Atlanta. This is a wrestling city in the South that has always had good turnouts, and they have collectively said, no, we're good. We're not going. We're not paying the money to go.
Yep.
So
Shout out to Billie Jean King, who the women's tennis player who beat a ranked male tennis player, I believe. I think it's been a long time now, a long time ago. But to go back and defend myself, and hopefully an outraged commenter doesn't. They have for the wrestling thing about that. They will string you up and hang you for literally calling them beautiful, even though that sounds very innocent. They want desperately to move away from the whole "oh, we're beautiful" and things like that. They want to not even be seen for that, or they want you to think they're not even being seen for that. But then they come out in tiny little cheeky shorts or and thongs
Yeah.
in some
The
cases.
thirst traps that they post on Instagram tells you that that was a lie.
Yeah,
Yes.
so they know their marketing worth, but there are some marks out there, and I will call them marks that say, well, they need to, you need to stop looking at them as objects and recognizing their talent. I say, why can't you do both? Because I know
Yeah.
that if you're watching a wrestling event out there with the women, you're telling me you're not looking Drew McIntyre up and down as much as you're appreciating what he can do athletically, because I think women would be lying to you if they told you they weren't.
Yeah, and I think Chris, being another wrestling fan, can probably agree on this. If you've got a woman's wrestler who is objectively not that attractive, but she has a lot of talent in the ring, I'm thinking like a Serena Deeb type.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. We'll take that. She belongs on the roster. If you've got somebody that is a certified dime but can't really do that well in the ring, like a Kelly Kelly early on in career, like 21-year-old Kelly Kelly, that's fantastic. We want her around too. But when you have somebody that is both attractive and good in the ring, like an Alexa Bliss, well, you just became my favorite. The looks are a part of it because there is that feeling of inferiority as far as the wrestling ability goes, that you almost have to make up the ground with the looks department to make you equally interesting enough for us to invest our time and attention and certainly money into that. And we're just not there yet by the looks of the sales and the numbers that this Evolution pay-per-view is expected to do.
And hell, that's just really a life lesson, isn't it? Didn't they say that more attractive people get the better jobs in everyday life too? So,
Sure.
uh,
I could be the greatest wrestler in the world, and people aren't going to care because nobody wants to see me in a pair of trunks,
right.
Grabbing in the ring and throwing around. Like, they'd much rather see somebody that looks like Drew McIntyre. They don't want to see this ugly face on their TVs. There's a reason I'm on YouTube instead.
Should be fun. Interesting to see how it goes, though.
But yeah, I think that's really all we had this week, unless, Brian, if you had anything else that you wanted to add. I know kind of a shorter video this week.
No, I think the video length has been pretty fine. I mean, we're sitting at about 45 minutes right now, which is longer than I think any of the three of us anticipated this video being. But I do want to give a kind of shout out to our subscribers. We're up to 115. I do want to plug our NFL video preseason videos that we're doing right now. We've got a whole series coming out. We're doing all 32 teams in 8 weeks. So, if we haven't done your favorite team, we're going to get to them for sure. But I do appreciate all the likes and the comments and the engagement that we've had across that series. And even with our podcast, I appreciate each and every one of you for tuning in and spending, 10, 20, or an hour with us. I'm super happy with that. Hopefully the channel looks strong right now, and hopefully we will continue to grow and, keep this thing going.
For sure. And I think Chris also had a project that he's been working on for a long time that he has held back from a lot of you, but maybe is ready to announce a little bit more. So we'll give Chris the floor to do that now.
I think I'll go ahead and save that for the next time. It's going to be releasing at the end of July, so I've got a little bit more time. But I will go ahead and tell you guys that after working on this project he just mentioned, just relentlessly lately, I will be back at it with. I know a lot of you guys like the best from each school. I'm going to go ahead and jump out of alphabetical order and give you guys Auburn and Alabama, and then I'll jump back into the smaller ones and continue along, so you guys can enjoy some bigger schools. And I think I mentioned this before, but I'll mention it again. When I do the bigger schools, I'm going to do the best overall athlete, the most notable athlete, those could be one and the same, and the best female athlete. So that will be the format, and I'll put that in the beginning of the video in case you never see this. And yeah, look forward to you guys continuing to follow that series. I know some of you are following the series as a whole, and I know you're probably going, "Where the hell's it been?" Been working on a separate channel, and I'll tell you guys about that next time.
Cool.
Yes. But thanks for watching, everybody. We definitely appreciate you tuning in. A lot of stuff coming out. Check out all of the videos that we've got. The best way to do that is to subscribe. Make sure your notifications are turned on so you know when that NFL offseason review is coming out. You know when those best athlete videos are coming out. Obviously, the podcast isn't going anywhere as well. We're getting closer and closer to football season. Don't be surprised if you don't see a little college football 26 content hit the channel in the near future as well. We've been working on making that happen for some of you guys that might be interested in that. But again, just want to thank everybody. Subscribe if you haven't already, because we've got a lot of cool stuff coming out, especially between now and the start of football season. I think everybody knows that we're football guys here. We don't really shy away from it. So football season, the first one since this channel started. We're excited to see what can happen over the course of the season, fantasy football and all that stuff. A lot of exciting things happening. But thank you guys for tuning in again, and we'll see you next time.